Today's lesson is going to be on the zero factor rule. Now, this has to do with understanding how things can multiply to get us zero. So if you remember, if I tell you that I have two numbers, I don't know what they are, but I have two numbers and they multiply to give me zero. We have to think about, well, how do we get zero when we multiply? The only way to get zero as your answer when you multiply is if one of your numbers or one of your values, so A is 0 or B is 0. Now this or is very important because in math, if you said and, then that would mean that they're happening at the same time. Okay, and it's not about them happening at the same time. It just means one of them or both of them can be or have to be 0. So that's what the zero factor rule means. And so we're going to look at how we use this to solve equations or to solve for an unknown. Remember, FFG is shorthand for following. The first one we're going to have is x plus 5 times x minus 5 equals 0. Remember, if two things multiply to give me 0, then one of them, so x plus 5, has to equal 0, or x minus 5 has to equal 0. Now what I actually have are just two very simple linear equations to solve for. So this would then give me x equals negative 5 or x equals 5. Over here again, I have two things. There are two brackets. Remember, a bracket contains everything in it, so the bracket counts as one thing. And so I have two brackets being multiplied. My product is 0. That means that one of them or the other one must be 0. And so again, now I have two very simple equations to solve for. So this tells me x equals 2 or x equals negative 3. Let's do another one. Okay, so here again, two things are being multiplied. They give me 0. That means one of them or the other one must equal 0. Now it's a little more involved to solve for x on its own. It's going to require more than just one step. You can do it if you're able to see everything in one. But what we're going to get is that. And then over here, we will have 3x equals 8. And then we got to divide by the 3. And then I just like to put the or again down there. You don't have to write it on every step. You write it the first time and then you write it in your final answer. Remember, you're not going to give me decimals. You're not going to give me mixed numbers, okay? And remember we said that the zero factor rule is about when things multiply to give me 0. That means that if I have a string of items that equals 0, okay, so now I have three things that multiply to give me 0, then again, we still just have to remember that if we have things that multiply to 0, that means one of them or the other one, or in this case, I have one more, the other one would give me 0. Now in the first one, I have x equals 0. We don't do anything with that. It's just x equals 0. So that's it. Down here, that's going to give me 2x equals 1, x equals 1 over 2. Don't tell me 0.5. Okay, write it as a fraction. And then here, we're going to have x equals 3. So I like to then say this. Okay, that kind of lists your values for x. Another way, if you remember, we learned set notation. So we can write just all the sets out, all the elements in the set x. So you can do that as well. And then that gives you all your x values, okay? I think we'll do 2 more examples. So this one is basically telling me that x minus 1 squared is equal to 0. And so what we would do here is we can just take the square root, actually, of both sides. And the square root of 0 is just 0. So I get x minus 1 equals 0 and x equals 1. So you don't say x equals 1 or x equals 1. So because we could have seen this like this. So this actually means x minus 1 times x minus 1. Now, when you have the same answer, you don't state it twice. You're not going to say or x equals 1. That just doesn't make any sense. Okay, so you just have to say it once. Okay, so here we have, again, a string of multiplication. So 2x can be 0 or 3x plus 4 equals 0. And now here, this tells me x equals 0 or, and then I'm going to write this in one step. And then I want to see if you can follow along. So that gives me x equals negative 4 over 3. A mistake that students make is they get all caught up in the, oh, everything multiplies so that everything is 0. And then they end up writing nonsense like 2 equals 0 or x equals 0 or this. This is nonsense. 2 cannot be 0. 2 is 2. Okay? And that's why I put that there. Because students do make that mistake. They just get so caught up in their listing everything and saying equals 0 that they don't even think about what they're writing. Okay? So don't make that mistake. All right, so don't forget, you need to take the notes and have them ready so that when we are looking at things in class, you already have your set of notes. And then if you have any questions, we can go over them when we do the recap of the lesson.